Okay, well, thank you all for joining us today. Good afternoon. We really appreciate you joining. This is the first in our four-part fall webinar series. And so the title of our webinar today is Retail Marketing Trends from the Road. My name is Jessica DeGraff, and I, along with my counterpart, Megan Owens, are the retail account managers for Proven Winners. And simply what that means is that we work with independent garden centers like yourselves on marketing programs and tools to better support your efforts. So today, before we get started with the webinar, I wanted to walk through a few housekeeping items with you. First and foremost, all of you will be in listen-only mode, which simply means you're going to be muted throughout the webinar. Now, that being said, we absolutely love participation, and we want you guys to communicate with us throughout the webinar. And so there's a couple different ways that you can do that. For those of you that aren't overly familiar with Zoom, if you take your mouse and hover over the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little pop-up like the one that you see on the screen here. What you'll see is there's a chat function and also a question and answer function. You can click on either of those, type your questions or comments, and we'll respond to you. What we would love to have you do is simply type in the city and state or the city and province that you're logging in from. We'd love to know where you guys are tuning in. Last but not least, we're going to be monitoring all of your questions throughout the webinar session. And what we'll do is compile those questions, and we're going to have about a 10-minute question and answer period. Today, we're going to be talking about a number of different things. Megan and I both really love trends. We love looking at trends in not only the horticulture industry, but also trends in the greater retail industry. And so Megan is going to be presenting a ton of great information on not only trends, but how you as an independent garden center can really engage and capitalize on those trends. She's going to talk a little bit about the role of influencers and who we as a brand are working with, but also opportunities for you and your organizations to capitalize on influencers. And then last but not least, she's going to be sharing a great program that we have called Connect Plus. This is a marketing program, and we really want to share some new things that we're doing in 2021 in ways that you can really capitalize on that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Megan Owens.
Great, thank you, Jess. As Jessica said, these are some of our favorite presentations to do. We usually try to do a trend presentation every year, and we have so much fun. One, just kind of putting all the information together, and two, being out and speaking with all of you on the trends topic. Obviously, this year, it's a little bit different than it's been in the past, you know, for many, many reasons. And we will talk about some of those reasons and how that's going to change a little bit of the trends in doing business. And so we thought that was really important to make sure we're talking, you know, about some of the things we're seeing as far as, you know, sales and color trends and things like that, but also what we're seeing as just an evolution of retail, given what we've all gone through in the past 6 months, and how we see that evolving for our industry, and want to share some tools and tips that we've picked up through conversations with all of you and through some great resources. As Jess mentioned, we will talk about the Connect Plus program and where I see that it made sense with some of the trends and topics we're talking about. I did sprinkle some in throughout the presentation, and then we'll cover it a little bit more at the end as well. But there are some benefits and tools within Connect Plus that really directly relate to some of the marketing trends that we're talking about. So I just wanted to bring them up at those times. But first, I just wanted to get started, and we've shared this slide for a couple years, and it's great information. We do share some information from Garden Media Group. They do a fantastic job with their trend reports each year. But how to use trends. So, you know, that word gets thrown around, but as a retailer at your garden center, how do we use trends? How do we suggest you use trends? And really, the trends are driving consumer, and consumers drive sales at the most simple level. Trends will help you usually well in advance if you use some of these tools, well in advance select plants, products, services that customers want. And I think what you'll see today is the service piece of it, and some of the ignite new business product services and customer experiences. I think that is something for this year that is going to be very on trend and very key to how we're looking at the next selling season. But the trends also let you be a gatekeeper, an influencer, and a trendsetter. So getting on board with the trends puts you in that powerful position with your customers, and they can breathe new life into the business. So a few things that Proven Winners does to kind of drive some of these trends and drive some of the conversation and get you on board with some of the national marketing that we do every year is usually in about April so April of 2020, we'd be talking about our national plans for 2021. We want to give growers and retailers a lot of time to plan for these. Um, but really, it's a great way to tie into the national marketing because these are the plants that you will know we're going to be promoting on a national level. They're going to have strong campaigns behind them. They'll be marketed extensively to consumers. So the hope and the trend that we see with the national plants is that the consumers get excited about them and then they're asking where to find these plants, and we want to be driving them to you and have you guys be ready for that. And so when they're coming into your store, you guys aren't caught off guard. So we try to do better and better about getting you get that information early so that you're ready for that. And as you can see, our national plants for this year, our annual of the year, Super Trunium, Mini Vista, Pink Star, perennial of the year, Cat's Pajamas, Hosta of the year is Shadowland Wee, flowering shrub of the year is Pugster Blue. So we have 8 plants of the year that will be promoted quite heavily. These are things that you can expect our influencers like Laura from Garden Answer to be talking about, and also something that you can expect to be seeing in the Gardener's Idea book. But I didn't share a slide necessarily for this, but in this past selling season, so looking at 2020 as a July 1 to June, looking at that, we at Proven Winners had 8 billion impressions from all the different marketing that we do. But digital is becoming more and more of that majority of those impressions. And so I think if, looking back even from when I started 3 years ago to see, we were talking about 1 billion impressions. And so 3 years later to be at 8 billion impressions, it is just, a good representation of our effort to make sure that we're getting out, talking about the brand and talking about these plants, and then also getting you guys and your marketing tied in with the national marketing program. So to that same effect, our national recipes of the year are also heavily promoted, featured in the Gardener's Idea book. Again, what we'll be talking about quite a bit on our social media platforms, and also our influencer network, which we'll talk a little bit more. Another great thing as they're featured in the Gardener's Idea books is you'll see a lot of these being featured in aquapots. Often get that question about, people ask us, I really liked this spread in the Gardener's Idea book, and what container was that in? And sometimes that was kind of just something we found or thought looked really good, but now it's really heavily featured in the aquapots and in the trend colors. So I think that we're able to point consumers who are getting excited about those into the right direction as well, which we think is a really good change moving forward. So I put this up as the 2020 color of the year because, full disclosure, we're a little early on when we tend to do the trend webinar. In the past, we've done this, usually January, February has been when we've started getting out and talking about the trends. And actually the official Pantone color of the year is not announced yet. But I wanted to pop this up for a couple reasons. I wanted to let you know that we had decided to go early on the trends because, as you'll see when we go through that, there's a lot of things that talk a lot more about how we are going to evolve in our go-to-business strategy and how we're going to talk to our customers differently and how we're going to make some of those changes to follow the trends of how they anticipate they'll be doing their shopping moving forward. And so we didn't want to wait on doing that till January or February because we know making those decisions early and how involved you're going to get in changing things, or maybe there were some processes that you had to put in place last year on the fly that you guys think maybe we're still going to do this, but we need to tweak it. And so we wanted to have time to have this conversation and then be able to work with you guys if we can help, and help you in getting there with some of these, bigger changes. So that's why we didn't wait. However, in the past, how we've used that color of the year is, we'll promote our plants that fit within the color of the year. We'll, always talk about pottery, accessories, and different things that really tie into the fashion trends. We'll talk about colors that will also complement and accent that color of the year. And then it just brings your customers going to be seeing these colors heavily promoted, whether it be, you know, at the furniture store, whether it be where they're buying their clothes. So it's always just nice to have that fresh look, even if you do it in a small way, but to just be tied in and be on trend with these colors. We think, actually, from some of the research that we've been doing, that this is AI aqua, and it's actually artificial intelligence aqua. That we think that a color or something similar to this has a really good chance of being the Pantone color of the year. So just kind of giving you a little bit of a preview, nothing official yet, but it's also going to be challenging for matching flowers. But we do think there's lots of great opportunities, you know, as you're looking at your pottery, looking at aqua pots, looking at stuff that you're doing. Many of you have, you know, stores, retail stores within your garden center that you're doing, you know, some other items, and just wanted to make you aware that this color is something that we believe you're going to be seeing quite a bit as a trend. And so bringing in some of that accent pieces and tying that into what you're doing in your store, even if you don't have a lot of flowers of this color. If you do, I would love to hear about what you're doing for these, because that piece is going to be a bit of a challenge, but it's definitely, you know, has what we're hearing, you know, and as we get more through the trends where people are looking for something that's, you know, they're looking at meditative, they're looking at peaceful, they're looking at mindfulness, and just, you know, the serenity of colors like aqua, it makes sense that this would be on trend for this year, but we won't know officially. Usually this comes out in early December. So I did want to make a point with both this and the next resource I'm going to talk about, the Pinterest Top 100. These coming out later. If you're a member of our Facebook group, our Proven Winners IGC Facebook group, as this information comes out and as Jessica and I come across the new information, we'll share this on the group. If you're not a member and you haven't signed up yet, we'll have some information at the end of the webinar so that you can join us, because as we see some of these resources come up, we'll be making sure that we're getting that information out to you guys immediately. And this one, the Pinterest 100, comes out once a year. This is a fantastic resource as well. It has a lot of information about what growing trends are happening that they're seeing from searches on Pinterest. It also can tell you some trends that maybe are still, you know, pretty high as far as numbers go, but that they're starting to see a decline. They also will recognize some really early, you know, maybe it's not huge numbers, but wow, we're seeing a lot of interest in some of these different activities, projects, items. And so it's a really great way to start looking at what people are starting to get really into. And what's nice is they actually do this yearly report, but they do some like seasonal, quarterly type reports that we do have some information of, and we'll share some of that with you guys as it pertains to our particular business. We'll share some of that a little bit later in the presentation, but I wanted to make you aware of this resource so that you guys, you know, should definitely download it. It's a free resource, but really, really interesting information. And then this is a fantastic resource, and this just came out in the last couple of weeks. The Guardian Media Group does a great job every year bringing out trends and relating them to our industry. So I think this is something that you should absolutely be taking a look at. Again, it's a free resource. You're just going to sign up and then you're able to do the download. But they do a terrific job, and it really does, you know, relate directly to our business. A lot of the times we're looking at things and there is, you know, there is some correlation to things that we do in our business, but maybe this trend report was thinking of a different kind of retail. And that's what I love about the Garden Media Group's work, is that it really does talk specifically about what we're trying to do as an industry and what we're up against. And so again, I would encourage you to download this resource, and also we'll reference it throughout the presentation, because we just really, really are big fans of the work that they're doing there. So as we mentioned, we will also go through and talk a little bit about the Proven Winners Connect Plus program. And this is a 4-tiered marketing subscription program. There's different levels to select which best fits your needs. So whether you know, you need a little bit of help in marketing, you're just kind of dipping your toe in, or whether you're looking to kind of do a full-fledged Proven Winners campaign, we have a size that we think fits everybody. We'll talk about what those different tiers look like towards the end. The program and the ability to sign up for the program online will kick off on November 1st, but we're still having a ton of conversations right now about the program. You can still go online and check it out and be reminded when it is time to sign up for the program on November 1st. So we just want to make you aware of that. And like I said, we'll tie in some of these things to the Connect Plus program as we go through. So I wanted to show this because I think this is actually a really, really interesting concept of the HEART framework. And if you've heard of the HEART framework in the past, it was actually something that was developed by Google as an approach to improve user experiences with software. But there's been a bit of an evolution. So initially with the software, they were looking at HEART as being happiness, engagement, adoption, retention, and task success. And that was kind of the software way of looking at it. But with the current situation and what we've all endured in the last 6 months, now it's broadened, and we don't need to just look at it as a software approach, but now we can look at it from really any business approach and what the HEART framework means now. And you know, the H of that being humanizing your company. So, you know, let consumers know that you understand what they've been through. Let them know that you empathize with what they've gone through and what you're adopting and changing to try to make the experience better and to help them through the difficulties that maybe they're feeling due to, you know, that the shopping experience has changed, and really understanding that and communicating those changes that you're making for your customers and communicate the changes that you've made for your employees. So really taking that situation we were all in and showing that your business, that you understand it and that you're in the same boat with them. Educating consumers about how to interact with your company. So as things changed, and they changed a lot over the last few months, but as they continue to change and evolve, just making sure that your customers are hearing from you so that they know if store hours change, if store operations change, if different services that you have, if new services are coming on, if services that you've done in this interim are going to go away, making sure that you're communicating and educating them about what you're doing in your business to change with the times. Assure consumers that the company values will continue. So just letting them know if they're your loyal customers and they've come to grow and love you, that despite, you know, changes or despite you know, differences to the business, that your values as a company will continue. Revolutionize what your customers value about your business. So they've already coming to you, you know, you have a good group of customers that are coming to you, but what can you do to, you know, give them something new, give them something more exciting, make their experience even better. And some of that, I don't know if, you know, I will relate back personally on some of these, you know, things that we'll be talking about. And, you know, sometimes this has been such a challenging time, but there are different stores you go into or different situations that you're like, you know, I obviously want business to be coming in, this to be successful, but wow, the change in this layout or the change in the way that they're doing this really makes things like easier to shop or really makes things, you know, a little bit less confusing. And so what things are you learning, you know, as you've gone through these challenges that may revolutionize the way that you do things? And then, of course, tackling the future. So make it evident to your customers that your business is ready to tackle the future and weather the storm. So highlighting what you guys have learned from this experience, and, you know, signal that you believe that your company is going to come out stronger from all of this. And you know, being able to have a lot of conversations, albeit Zoom, that Jessica and I have had with you guys, you know, what you did in the past few months, and I think what a lot of you are looking at doing and continuing and adapting moving forward. I think you guys are all kind of operating within this HEART framework, but, you know, just kind of keeping and having that in place to take a look back at and say, are we doing this? I just really liked this, you know, way of approaching, you know, this next period of time. And so, you know, this is an interesting side to me. I found that, you know, we're looking right now at the transition to not the new normal, but the next normal. So, you know, experts, and nobody can really be an expert in these current situations, but we're looking, somewhere in a 12 to 18 month to go into this next normal where we see that the GDP recovers to pre-COVID levels, right? So not to get way into the weeds on that, but behavior changes will reshape consumer decision journeys. So how people are making decisions, what decisions they're making, what's most important to them is shifting. And then during this transition period, in this period of unknown, companies really do need to adapt fast. And retailers that use the transition period to kind of think about customer decisions and how they're going to adapt their business are going to be ahead of the game. And this was just so interesting to us. I mean, when you look at the evolution at lightning speed of what's happened, I mean, online delivery, where they expected to see themselves, where online delivery expected to see that service in 10 years, they got there in 8 weeks because of the pandemic. Telemedicine was 10 times the folks using that service in 15 days. I think we all know the remote working, and there was 20 times more participants using video conferencing like Zoom over a 3-month period. 250 million remote learners got online in 2 weeks in China. And then I think this is pretty crazy, 7 years and 5 months. So Disney Plus achieved in 2 months what it took Netflix 7 months to do as far as subscribers and viewership. So everything is just on, if we felt like things were moving fast before, now everything is kind of going at lightning speed. And how much of that is here to stay and how much of that is something that's probably temporary? And, again, this is such an interesting situation that nobody knows, but what we do feel is that, people are going to think about trading down, and there is going to be some price sensitivity, and there likely is going to be a reduction in discretionary spending that could be an enduring part of this pandemic. And we also, I think everybody would agree that the focus on health and hygiene, so, how we're letting people safely shop in our stores, what we have in place, that doesn't seem to be something that anybody can say, yeah, I see that going away next month, or I see things back to normal next month. Interestingly, things like a reduction in on-the-go consumption, maybe we see that coming back quicker. And then the large basket consumption, which I joked again during quarantine, and just many of you can probably relate, like your grocery bills during that time, and so like just because you wanted to go once and you went into the store, and so probably we're going to be transitioning a bit away from that. But a lot of these things, people are still going to be nesting at home. People are looking for that stability, and they're looking for trusted brands. So I think we're still, as an industry, really poised in a great position as people are getting back out there, but still want to have a level of comfort. I think we still have a really great opportunity to not only not only keep those folks who came on board, but really transition them into gardeners, not one time. I think we're having that conversation a lot. We'll talk more about that, but I think we have a great opportunity to create some lifelong gardeners out of folks that maybe would not be in that situation 1 year ago. And then you can see, as for enduring remote working, I think, we're hearing that from a lot of different companies and businesses, and not necessarily always an easy thing to do at retail, but we're seeing more and more of that. And the surge in e-commerce, and that's something, as an industry, and I know that you guys individually are addressing, and we will all have to continue to address, because this convenience and this experience is likely not going away. To reinventing the shopping experience, and I wanted to share this. This was from our friends at Dutch Growers, but again, this goes back to how we're tied back to the heart framework, because this is communicating. We're so excited, our plant fam, we want you guys to come back, and here are some of the things that we have in place to make you feel safe, to make our employees safe, and these are really easy to understand, communicated, and getting that information out. And I thought Dutch Growers did a great job at doing that. I think a lot of our retailers that we work with, you guys did a great job of getting that information out. And so again, as things change and as they evolve, because your customers were hearing from you so much, don't take this time to kind of step back and say, well, we're not talking about, our changes or operational changes all the time, so we don't need to be, putting this information out so much, because they have kind of grown accustomed to hearing from you. So the message doesn't always have to be, COVID related, but it also, they're used to hearing about what's going on at the store, and as things evolve, staying on top of that, not necessarily waiting for government restrictions or different rules to come into place to make you communicate that, but just kind of taking those steps proactively to let your customers know how much you value them and value their employee safety, I think is still going to be extremely important. And convenience. So along with that, highly hygienic, comfortable experience, is that the convenience factor that we knew was coming anyway is just continuing at lightning speed. So shoppers wanting to get in and get out. In 2019, only 14% of garden shopping, was done online, and that was similar to grocery sales. And we're just seeing such a huge increase in that. If you look at the amount of grocery sales going up to 60-70% of people doing that business online, how we correlate that to our gardening business. I mean, I know a year or two ago when I started doing my curbside pickup at the grocery store, and my dad just being like, well, I don't want people picking out my produce, and I need to go and pick it out, and I like to do that, and then that changed, and now it was okay, and everybody liked the idea of going and having that picked up and having it put in their car. And I think some elements of that with the curbside pickup that we thought, well, nobody's ever going to go garden shopping this way. Nobody's going to they want to be in the garden center. They want to be touching and feeling. And I do think ideally a lot of people do still want to do it that way, but having that element of convenience, it was thrown at us this year. It was, we had to get prepared for it, but what are going to be the customer expectations moving forward for some of those convenience factors to still be in place? Because a lot of other elements of retail and a lot of other retailers are getting, more up online, are going to continue with curbside, are going to continue with delivery. And so how do we meet expectations without completely, wearing out our staff like we did this year, because it came, out of nowhere for us. So thinking ahead about some of that, I think, is going to be really, really important. And also an interesting, people still shopped, 1/4 of Americans spent more money while social distancing. So, people were still shopping, but just albeit in a different way. So keeping that in mind. And, what is the future of curbside? And Jess and I joke a little bit about like this being like a dirty word, curbside, because we know how stressful it was for most of you guys this year. But we are having those conversations about, okay, have you stopped doing it completely? Some of you are still doing it. What is it looking like for your future? And, are you watching other businesses and just watching the way that retail is moving to decide how you're going to make those decisions and what those expectations of your customers are going to be. I think that's really important, is just not necessarily to say you've got to be planning to do this, but having a plan in place if you do feel like that's a service that's going to be necessary. So the nice thing is that we've got a lot of more time to be talking about this and thinking about this, and hopefully a lot less issues with staffing and a lot of the challenges from this year. But you're seeing more and more in stores that I wouldn't expect to have been continuing with the curbside pickup, that it seems to be going quite strongly still. So, and I know that a lot of that is regional and geographical and state by state, but having a plan, the contingency plan in place, I think, after what we all experienced this spring, I think being prepared for anything doesn't hurt. And so we felt we had to bring up the curbside pickup and want to have those conversations with you guys to talk about how we can help and what questions you have, and want to make sure that through the Facebook group, you guys are talking to each other. If this is direction that you're going to continue to go on, how you can do it efficiently in a way that makes sense for the garden center. So now more than ever, the importance of marketing, economic uncertainty is actually a time to increase and not decrease your marketing spend. So in a recent study that was done over 3 months during really the heart of the quarantine period, 43% of consumers find it reassuring to hear from brands. So there's about 15% of consumers who said, at this time, I don't want to hear advertising. I don't want to hear, I'm focusing on my family and health, and I don't want to hear it. But a good percentage of consumers did still want to hear from brands during a time like that. And so keeping that in mind, your marketing approach is also changing, though, because maybe you had radio campaigns and people weren't in their cars. Maybe you did more with local newspapers and people who had transitioned away from having the flyers and things like that delivered. So now what's our marketing approach, and what multi-channel possibilities and opportunities do we have, whether that be Facebook and Instagram channels, whether that be influencers, or whether that be, some of you do a fantastic job with your newsletters and your emails with your customers. But what does that marketing approach look like? And it's more and more we're seeing that it can't just be, we do Facebook or we do newsletters and that's it. That it really needs to be more of a multi-layered approach to make sure that you're getting that information out to your customers and making sure that they're hearing from you on a regular basis. Because we do want that customer loyalty, right? That part is huge. And I think a lot of us can relate to really wanting to make sure that we're supporting our local businesses this year, making sure that we're getting out and supporting the businesses that we've come to know and love in our communities. So how are you handling customer management capabilities? Do you have a loyalty program? How are you guys, are you doing that, with a pretty, basic level, or do you guys, have a pretty high-tech CRM system in place? What would work best for you? How are you fostering trust through communication? So are you sending out blogs or emails or communications on a regular basis? Are you incentivizing new customers, and at the same time making sure that your customers who are loyal and or your longtime customers are feeling the love from you as well? So that customer loyalty piece, again, now more than ever, because I think your customers are being so loyal to you, it's a great time to look at what your customer loyalty plan and what your programs look like, and how you might be able to revamp them to just really, not to be corny, but to put your arms around your customers and tell them that you appreciate their business. And how you do that, I think is a great thing to be thinking about now for next spring. We heard a lot of consumers that they value your community support. So again, during this past 6 months, they really valued companies that were out doing what they could in the community to support the community during tough times. So I think this is a great example from Homestead, that they worked with local farmers who are having a hard time getting their product that was ready to go out, and actually brought them together with people who are looking for meat and produce to the local community. They were able to help with that, which was awesome. Charles Spitzner and Kurt Weiss, they did an awesome, huge delivery. I know a lot of you guys delivered to your to first responders and to healthcare workers. I know Charles Spitzer, they had pansies, and they went and in New York they couldn't sell at the time, and went and delivered them to neighborhoods, and then popping that stuff up on Facebook. So I think that's the other important part of that, is your customers really do want to hear about this. A lot of you are very giving people, so you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart, but make sure you share that too, because it does make a difference. It's not just going on and you might feel like you're bragging about it or something, but it really, they love to hear about what you're doing in the community. And a lot of you did some amazing things in this past 6 months. So as you're doing that stuff, make sure that you're out and you're sharing that. So kind of tying in a lot of the topics that we've gone through already is this omni-channel benefits, and it benefits the customers and it benefits small business, but it seems really, really big. And really, at its core, it's looking at different things like using cross-channel insights. So looking at information that you're getting from your customer counts, customers coming in, your data that you're getting from sales, and then looking at your interactions on your different social media platforms, looking at your customer retention rates so that you can start changing the way that maybe you're targeting specific audiences, focusing your marketing content, and really being able to review your growth quickly. That's becoming more and more important, is just having that data. And we are trying through the Connect Plus program and through a lot of the things that we do on our marketing part to bring you some benefits to help you either really jump into this aspect or start dipping your toe into some of these different channels and different strategies. And so our inventory listing on provenwinners.com is a benefit that's offered to our enhanced and elite members. And what that is outside of having the retailer lookup that you get from certifying and the Getting Started program with Connect Plus, this actually, if somebody goes in your area and goes in and looks at a plant record, then your information as a garden center, you're able to upload inventory. And I won't get into all the specifics, but we have about 6 different ways to help you do that, because we realize some people can upload from the POS system pretty seamlessly, and other people, it's still, it's still a very manual process. And we've got a lot of things in place to really work with anybody who's interested in doing this and find a solution that would work best for them. But what's awesome is that a customer who goes in and looks at Fall in Love Sweetly, goes and looks at Vista Bubblegum, can see that you actually have this product. It has a date where you uploaded your inventory. So if you did it 4 months ago, they might say like, chances are they don't have it. But if you're uploading your inventory weekly, we're really wanting to drive customers into your garden center. And so this gives you a little bit of an online presence to be selling your Proven Winners product. And so this year, last year we had this benefit, but just due to the timing of everything that happened, we really didn't have a lot of garden centers who took us up on that. And we're doing a lot of tweaking, but this is a great conversation Jess and I would love to have with you guys, because we feel like this is going to be a really, really big asset. But we know that there's some, probably a little bit of hesitancy about what that process looks like. And we think we can, help ease some of the apprehension on that. So I did want to point out this benefit as one to definitely reach out and have a conversation with us about how this could work for your garden center. And another part of that, so another part of having the multiple channels and doing things across different platforms is also the targeted Facebook campaign. So this is a campaign that we run for our enhanced and our elite customers. It's 5 weeks for enhanced and 8 weeks for elite customers. We did it this year. We got a lot of learnings, so we feel like we can even run more effective campaigns to target, specific demographics and specific either zip codes or metro areas, depending on what works well for your area. And really get the word out that your garden center is the place to find Proven Winners products. And we learned a lot this last year just about the effectiveness of different advertising with this, and really I think we had some great results for 2020, but I think we're going to have some really great results across the board in 2021. So again, this is another benefit that we feel like we can help you kind of get to some of these different strategies and different omni-channel approaches that maybe would be really difficult to do, on your own, especially if you don't have a full-time marketing person working with you. And then I wanted to talk some about video as we're talking about all of this, because you get the question, and I think this is funny because probably last year, it was really a question of whether or not video marketing was worth the effort. And marketers, even at that time, said absolutely they felt like they got their return on investment. And businesses felt like what they were doing with video was actually, very beneficial to them in selling their product. I think that this year, especially during the pandemic, seeing so many of you get online in so many different capacities, I think everybody really, in a large part, jumped on board And we wanted to share a little bit of information and some of those stories with you. But Facebook users are 4 times more likely to watch live streams than recorded videos. So that Facebook Live, and believe me, you know, I've done a couple. Jess and I are definitely getting more into video. It is definitely not our comfort zone, but it's becoming more and more important. And so those live videos that you can be doing, I popped up East Coast Garden Center. They've done some great ones. They also are like Facebook Live one-on-one, and they put up like some of the funniest lines before their videos. It was one the other day, I think I put on a Facebook group, but it was like, you know, can't stand your neighbors, and talking about putting like hedges up and all of this. So it's just, they're very much grabbing in folks and getting them to want to see what this video is all about. They're getting great interaction. But the times people spend watching Facebook Lives quadrupled in the past year. So from maybe you scrolled through and saw some and watched once in a while to now that's up 4 times over where people were interacting with Facebook Live last year. So this is a great tool. It's an easy tool for you to be learning, and there's lots of resources, you know, online, just going on YouTube and getting tips on how to do it and how to do it well. So that would be something, if you guys aren't doing this currently, I would definitely encourage you to take a look at. Not much of an investment needs to be made, and I think there's a good reward on that. It's just a lot, like with a lot of social media, there's a lot of consistency involved in that. This was really cool because I was just searching and looking for some more information on when we were putting together this presentation, and this was an impact marketing group, and they had 3 different businesses that they thought did live streaming success, did a great job with their live streaming during the pandemic. And one was Bon Appetit magazine, and they did this test kitchen like trivia show. And then another was how social media week did how they basically transitioned, like we all did it, to a virtual event as opposed to having their in-person event, which is usually quite a big deal. So, but the third one that they highlighted was Mobox and their garden center and their live gardening tutorials. And I thought that was really, really cool to see that highlighted, and what a great job that they had done. And what they felt was so, this marketing group felt was so successful about how they did this is the live piece. They could have, you know, recorded this, popped it up on, you know, Facebook, popped it up on their website. People could have come and watched it, and that probably would have been great as well. But having that live piece where customers were able to interact, they were able to ask questions, they felt like they were there. It takes a lot of, you know, I think we're all talking about what we're going to do with events and classes and things like that moving forward. A little bit of unknowns with that, and so this was just a great example of having success doing it in a different way. And maybe there's opportunity where you don't have people having fear of coming to the garden center, that they can pick up, you know, materials and still go in and watch this live, or just giving that information from a Facebook Live, an interactive place. And again, then being able to record that, so if people can't join at that time, then they're able to watch it later, which you don't always have the benefit of that with a live class. So looking at some of these things that people did, you know, to fill a void, and that now how can we do that successfully, and how does that become part of our plans moving forward? And I do think a lot of these things have a place in our marketing plans for this spring as well. And then YouTube. I mean, YouTube is the #1 platform that affects consumer behavior. I mean, it has become huge. We obviously work very closely with Laura from Garden Answer, and Laura has, I think, she's up to 1.1 million subscribers on YouTube. She's got 3 million Facebook followers and a fan base of about 350,000 on Instagram. So when we talk about influencers, which we'll talk a little bit more about that, before we have to obviously mention Laura both as an influencer and then as her, you know, Facebook presence and for her YouTube channel. I mean, she very much covers those platforms, and she does it in a lot of different ways. So you do see her pop up a live video. You do see her have more of the videos that she's done for us that you have an opportunity to take part in through the Connect Plus program at an elite level. We have 5 videos that she's doing for us this year, And she does have a call to action at the end of those to come to your garden center and find Proven Winners products. And you have your logo placed at the end of that. And so getting to really tap into her immense popularity and then use those videos however you see fit, whether you are doing a mailing, whether you do a newsletter, whether you want to put those up on Facebook, because we do know that our videos do get watched quite a bit on Facebook, even if they aren't live. However you want to use those are yours to use at your garden center and for your business. But with her extreme popularity, it's a great opportunity to really be tapped into the #1 garden influencer. So when we talk a little bit more about who we're working with influencer wise, I just wanted to make sure that we had our good shout out to Laura right here, because she's been amazing to work with and her popularity is just pretty unbelievable. And this is a little bit near and dear to my heart. I think a lot of my friends just started gardening this year, and even walking around my neighborhood, I've joked to some of my coworkers that, in the past I've walked around and it doesn't seem like anybody has any flowers out, and it can be a little bit disheartening. And a lot of people, my age through the neighborhood, and then this year it's like a whole different story, and everybody had vegetable gardens and raised beds, and everybody's got containers out and are planting. And so it was so awesome to see. And I think you guys recognize that too. And I've talked to so many of you that have said, what do you think about the new gardeners that we've got? Do you think that how many of those do you think we're going to retain? We don't think we're going to keep them all, but what is the number that we're looking at? And we kind of throw around like a 30 to 50% of those gardeners, as the number we hope to see retained. But we also, all of us as an industry, have some work to do on that. And I think this is kind of a great opportunity to start doing, start looking at what we're going to do for our marketing plans that really make these new gardeners feel welcome, really teach them some things that maybe they didn't know, give them a comfortable space to ask some questions. I think there's great opportunities with classes, particularly virtual classes that are geared towards beginners, to really give them that confidence and have them not have that fear of walking into the garden center and asking a stupid question. So I think a lot of new gardeners had a lot more success than maybe new gardeners have in the past, because they were home, they were looking at things, they were taking care of things, they were researching online what's going on with this. But I think it's our responsibility as an industry to really make sure that we're continuing to kind of nurture those new gardeners and continue their success. One thing that we've done kind of in response to when everybody was home and when the kids were home and when our kids were home is really resuscitating this Club Sprout program. And this was something that Proven Winners had dabbled in a few years ago. But Jess and I really felt strongly about having these projects that kids could do, with their caregivers. Some of them are outdoor projects, some inside, but all kind of garden based, and all really looking to develop a lifelong learning and love of gardening at a really early age. So through the summer, we tried to push out about one a week. We have templates, and these can be completely customized, so you can put your logos on there. We're working on fall projects right now. I think we're gonna have a lot more content moving forward, but we just see this as something that is really important. And again, we're wanting to engage those young folks who are the customers of the future, but we want them to really be out there and enjoying, and also giving families who maybe are spending more time at home some fun projects that they can be doing together. So that's kind of where that was born, with both looking at new gardeners and then looking at people who were probably looking for some activities once the weather got a little bit warmer. Another piece of that new and beginner and new gardener is looking at the signage that you've got in the store. So we know, especially this past spring, but in general, there's never enough people in the garden center to answer everybody's questions. And again, when we go to, is there somebody who really has some questions that's hanging back and in fear of asking that dumb question in their mind? We had some of our garden centers, Creekside, we worked with them on some signage to just answer really easily what the difference between a Supertunia and a Super Bell was, and what they should be using Supertunias for, and what best to use Super Bells for, and just kind of answer some of those questions that your customers may have by just looking at a sign. We've done something similar with kind of that Plant This, Get This program, but we really are always looking for ways to give, educational information and signs for your customers, because we know how crazy it gets during the busy time, and that it's really tough to be out there and answering everyone's questions. And again, if we're looking at that beginner person, are they gonna wait, for you to ask what they're, a question that they might be nervous about asking, or are they going to be waiting in line, or are they just going to be like, and walk out of the store? And that's what we don't want. So as much support material as that we can have in your garden center, that looks and feels like it belongs in your garden center and doesn't look like we're just, putting signs everywhere. But if we can help you develop some of that, I think it's going to be a really important time to be speaking to some of these people who just started gardening this past year or so, or are going to be interested in doing it. As we've seen, a lot of suburban shift, there's still probably going to be a lot of new gardeners coming up in this next year, and just making sure that we love our gardeners and our diehard gardeners and our master gardeners, but we want to make sure we're speaking to our new crop of gardeners as well. So as a part of the Connect Plus program, we do have POP coupons that are available. At the basic level, it's $75, at the enhanced level, $150, and at the elite level, $200. So if there's signage that you're interested in doing, you can go to the POP store and use that coupon. You can also use it in the professional store. So if you wanted to get new shirts for your staff, or wanted to have water-wise kits or things like that come into the store, that coupon can be applied to that as well. And then Jess and I always like to point out in these situations that we've got a lot of great signage, but we also like signs that look like they belong in your store. So if there's something that's not in the POP store, but is more custom, we're always ready and willing. We have a fantastic team of designers that we work with. So we'd love to have that conversation with you and see what we can do to bring those signage and messages into a way that it looks like it belongs in your store. And again, once those designs are determined, we can apply the POP credit from the Connect Plus program. If you're a member of that, we can apply that POP credit to that signage as well. And I think we all saw a lot of this again, and it, whether it was new gardeners this year or it was people who are new to vegetable gardening, the whole victory garden, that concept came back, and people really wanted to put value in growing their own food in this time of crisis, and consumers got more interested in growing their own food, and people who really probably had never thought about doing that in the past. So we have an opportunity to teach them about growing, but we also have opportunities to teach them about canning and winterizing their raised beds, teaching them about soil health. So now is a great opportunity to be talking about some of the things that they need to be doing for next year. And again, not assuming that these are our typical customers who know exactly what they're doing. This might have been the first time they've ever done it, and they don't know that there's anything left to be done. So again, if we're looking at ways to be talking to these customers, I think this is another great opportunity, and kind of an off-season opportunity, which is always can get a little bit tricky, as you're looking for content and to be continuously reaching out to your customers. And I point out Proven Harvest because I find this one to be a fun, what I love with the Proven Harvest is that oftentimes where these plants are in a grande container, and you go into your retail and it already has fruit on it. And I think a lot of customers love the idea. A lot of customers who are new to growing love the idea of having that fruit on it. Maybe it's not ripe yet, bringing it home. Oh, it's ripe. Look what I grew. So I think there's definitely a group of customers right now who are going to be in the garden center who would definitely see the appeal of a grande of a mazel basil, or the Fireway hot and heavy pepper already starting to pop fruit, or the Good Hearted tomato starting to pop fruit. So I'd just like to reiterate with the Proven Harvest that maybe we don't see this slated in with all of your other vegetables, but this to me is an end cap that really speaks to a specific customer. And I do think we're going to be seeing that specific customer in the garden centers this year. So if you're not familiar with those varieties, or some of the end cap and bench programs that we've done with those reach out to Jessica and I, because we'd love to talk to you about some of those opportunities, and even some of the opportunities with seed packets on a lot of these varieties as well, in the retail garden center. So we'd love to have that conversation, because I do think this fits an interesting niche that might be really, really appropriate at this point in time. So we did talk a little bit about Pinterest, and we were able to get some seasonal information. So from their summer report, what we found was that mental health and mental wellness and meditation and gratitude and positivity were way up. Pinterest as a whole said that they've never had so many people searching for well-being information ever on Pinterest, which totally makes sense. But again, these are things that just poise us to be in a really good position to talk about the benefits of our industry and our products with the value and the benefit of mental health as we move forward. So I just think that some of these things that people are out looking for, we are just really, really uniquely poised to take advantage of these trends and opportunities. Another was looking at the growth of people looking for outdoor spaces on a budget, up three times. DIY patio ideas on a budget, I mean, that's way up. Backyard oasis, which we, our friends at Spring Meadow had already created slides about planting an oasis in your yard this year. And people were really looking for that. And so one thing I would encourage you to do as these different programs come out, and as you start to look through trend reports and hopefully look at the Garden Media Report and Pinterest reports, how do you tie in some of these specific things they're looking for? And that would mean using that same language and making sure that you're tying in some of the things that you can offer and some of the value, the products and services you can offer at the garden center, tying that into the things that they're specifically looking for. So how you use these phrases to be pulling in customers, because we know that that is of interest. And this is something, again, this outdoor space trend, we believe just by the nature of the housing markets and just by the nature of what's been going on, that this is something that we see continuing into next season. So really making sure that you're capitalizing on these people who are trying to create that outside backyard experience. And houseplants, and I feel like we talk about that every year, right? And the growth of houseplants, but now it's funny because it's not just houseplants; it's your house, your office, your indoor sanctuary plants. I mean, this is becoming your home is becoming your be all, end all, your everything, right? So people, I think, are even taking that next step and looking for this. And I think the sky is the limit on houseplant sales. One thing, and Jess and I were joking about this today, is your Zoom room. And so, where are you sitting when you are having all these Zoom calls? And some of us are having a lot of Zoom calls, but how are you decorating? How are you expressing yourself? You're not going into the office necessarily and expressing yourself in the way you dress, but so now how is your, your background and where you're having, most of your interaction? How is that expressing you? And I do have some very nice caladium back here and some of my hydrangea, but right now I've got to work on my Zoom room. But I do think it's a great concept and something that really people are looking at how they do express themselves, when you're confined to this box. So again, it's just, I think houseplants are just poised to grow more and more. And again, that's a great thing for us as an industry. The final thing I wanted to talk about from a trends perspective is the influencer piece. And I think there's a little bit of a misconception about exactly what influencers are. I think from, if you have younger kids or, have more experience with Instagram, sometimes the connotation of an influencer might not be the greatest thing. So I do think there's sometimes a little bit of a misconception about influencers. But what we have found, one, working with Laura, who we're really blessed to have had that partnership that started a few years ago, is that influencers can really bring a lot of visibility to your business. They can also, you have a great opportunity with them to be tying into some of the stuff that they're doing without having to have them necessarily be influencing for you. we started working with a much larger group of influencers. And what we find is, we have worked with them to a point of sending them product. If we saw that they were, interested in gardening, and they started, we're doing a lot with proven winners, or just had some interest in proven winners. It's as simple as sending them some plants and having them try them and see what they do with them and see how successful they are. We're blessed now because we're working closely with influencers who are in lots of different locations. Norman Winter, the garden guy, he is located down south, and so now we're getting a lot more information about how things are growing in the south, where Laura is up in being in Eastern Oregon's in a very, very unique climate. So Norman can kind of speak to a whole different climate for us. The guys at Beekman, I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. They are just blowing up too. They're in Alta now, and they just, we worked with them on a moon garden this past spring, and just they're posting all the time. They're getting a pretty crazy following themselves. Some really fun influencers that we're working with. Staff Sergeant Ambrose and Angie Salazar from Garden Obsessions. They, being in the military, they've moved all over the place. They move their plants all over the place. They love their proven winners plants. We've started, having more of a partnership with them. They do both English and Spanish version of posts and videos, and so they've been, a great resource for us to be able to reach out to a different audience. And then some others that we're working with as well. Plaids and Poppies, she has a great perennial influencer. Kevin Spiritu, Epic Gardening, so a lot in the food and produce. Jenny, I've worked pretty closely with. She's down at Creekside Nursery and down in North Carolina. She just hit 10,000 subscribers on her YouTube channel, and they have not been doing it all that long. And she's getting, followers across the country. They do great, really, really informative videos. So, just partnering with folks like that has been really exciting for us. And then Katie Stagliano from Katie's Crops is one of the greatest stories of, she started as a very young kid, growing plants and working with schools to grow plants to be donated to local food banks. So, and now I think some of our folks started working with her years ago. Now she's graduated from college, and it's been a pretty crazy story, but she's still heavily involved with working with schools in most states. So working with these influencers, it's just been, it's been an honor and something that we've been really trying to expand and branch out a bit more to. But what we want to encourage you guys to do is look around the industry, look at some of these influencers, are you want to be following them, want to be, tagging them in some things, but at the same time, look at some of your local influencers. What sometimes I think the misconception is that, okay, well, this person doesn't have that many followers, but some of those micro influencers who might have 1,000 followers have really, really dedicated followers who are, interacting with them, and they're answering questions and they're asking questions. And so they might have a smaller following, but it's very, very much an engaged following. And some of those can be extremely effective, especially on a local level. So kind of looking around your areas and seeing who's out there, who kind of fits with what you're doing in your business, and then really capitalizing on that and starting to forge a relationship by reaching out to them and seeing how you might be able to work together. But I think that's definitely something that we have done more and more of, and are seeing some definite benefits from. So something I would really encourage you guys to start looking into as well. So really quickly, because I know we've gone a little bit long, but I wanted to just point out a few things on the tiers of the Connect Plus program. So as I said earlier, it's 4 levels. Our getting started level is really everything that we've had in the past that's been free, as far as certification and all the benefits that go along with certification, including Proven Winners University, access to the retailing newsletter, access to the IGC Connect Google Drive, which is a drive I'll pop up at the end just to give you that information, but a drive where we house a lot of great at your fingertips information. moving into the basic plan. So our EOD on these plans is January 1st. And then after January 1st, there is a price jump. So we'd really encourage you to look at signing up before January 1st. One of those specific reasons is that if you're interested in doing any of the paid plans, the Gardener's Idea Books, we can actually put your logo on the back of the Gardener's Idea Books if you sign up by EOD. So that's nice to have in the store, that you can actually have your logo on the back where you see that PW logo right there. We actually switch that out with your customer logo. And then you can see some of the benefits that come along with the basic plan. And we talked through a lot of these enhanced, sorry about that. We talked through a lot of these enhanced and elite topics as well. So I just wanted to list these out for you. But what I wanted to point out is that Jessica and I will be working on these PW Connect Plus videos. And so again, through the Facebook group, we'll be sharing information and details about all these different benefits. We'll be getting into more detail than we can get into, you know, in the retail resource guide, or even in a setting like this. So we will be starting those at the beginning of October, so popping up, you know, 1 or 2 a week that really get into some of the benefits and answer some of those questions. So be looking for those. We'll also be housing those on a YouTube channel as well. So if you're not on the Facebook group, or if you want to go look at a bunch of them and don't want to scroll through, they'll be there for you as well. And then just the additional resources. And Jess and I are going to send this entire webinar out after. So you'll have links to all of these resources, but the Google Connect drive that we mentioned, that link is up there. The Facebook group, so that is the name of the Facebook group. If you search it, you have to answer just a few questions. We please ask that you answer them, because we want to make sure that we've got IGC garden centers in there. So we just ask if you're an owner, if you're a employee, what your garden center and where you're located, just so that we make sure that we've just got garden centers in there. And then a link to the retail resource guide that kind of is our little roadmap to everything that we ran through, as far as our programs, Connect Plus, some great information about things that customers are doing. So really a great resource, and there's the digital copy there, or if you want a printed copy, just reach out to Jessica or myself and we can get you that. And then finally, I just wanted to point out, we do have 3 more webinars in this series. So the next one will be tips from the pros and creating social media connections. So getting much more in a deep dive about social media. We'll be been following one in November on IGC stories of success from spring 2020. And then in December, we'll be doing a dress your store for success with proven winners destination information. So we encourage you to sign up for those as well. And then I will stop talking and see if there's any questions for me to answer, Jess. Sorry about going a little long there.
Oh, no problem. Thanks, Megan. The information was great. So knowing that we're a little bit over time, for those of you that need to jump off, please feel free to do so. We're going to continue to record the webinar, and we'll make that recording available later this week for those of you that want to dig into this a little bit deeper. A couple questions, Megan, that I thought maybe you could address. The first was from Craig, and he was just asking, how strong do you think customer loyalty programs are for our industry?
You know, and both of us, I guess, can answer this question. I do find that the customers I work with that do have a customer loyalty program definitely see the benefits of that customer loyalty program. Whether or not, you know, it's a necessity or has been a necessity in the past, I don't know that I can answer that, but I do feel like being able to reach out to those customers on a regular basis and be able to reward their sales, record those sales, and you know, give them coupons and have store events just for them seems to work really well. And you can speak to that too.
Yeah, I think it's that the whole 80-20 rule. We do definitely see a lot of garden centers that still take part in that. I think the really great opportunity is utilizing that point of sale system. So that way you're rewarding folks, but not just rewarding them for their purchases. You're giving them exclusive looks at maybe, hey, we got a new shipment of houseplants in, and we're going to tell these folks about it first. And so I think that's a great tool to utilize that and make it not so much about necessarily money spent, but about access and information, which kind of goes back to that HEART framework. Right. The last question, and I think we'll stop it here, Megan, was regarding the inventory piece. with Connect Plus on our website. And so we had a question with respect to, do we have a live link API for inventory updates, or how would that work if someone wanted to connect with us on that?
Yep, and I think that as we talked through the that 6 different ways to connect, we absolutely, that is one of the ways that we can connect with you and really have access and work with you with your POS systems. I think that's obviously the ideal way, but not a way that a lot of folks have been working with us in the past. And so, and then the API link is, again, another way that we can keep that inventory as fresh as possible. And I think the better, or not the, a lot of this falls on what's reasonable for the customer to be able to access. You know, how often can they get to doing the QR code, doing the API calls, doing, you know, and so the real conversation I think that we have to have individually with the customers is just what is reasonable for them to be getting that information up, because I think there's any way that we're willing to work with them in any way possible, but it's just going to be what makes sense and what's going to keep that inventory fresh, because that's going to be the most important part. And I don't think it needs to be on a daily basis necessarily, but it does. I do think it needs to be on a weekly or in something that is kept pretty timely.
Yeah, I would agree. So with that, we know we're a few minutes over. We wanted to sincerely thank you all for joining us today. If you have additional questions, our contact information is on the screen. Megan and I are always available to answer questions. We look forward to connecting with each of you at a greater level, and just really encourage you to work with us, to ask us questions, and also really to double down for spring 21. We're really excited about opportunities and feel like 2021 is going to be even better than 2020. So with that, thank you guys.
Thank you.